Greetings, celestial friends, and welcome to episode 14 of Astrology with Wendy. I'm Wendy Forman, your host and a local Hawke's Bay astrologer. For the last few years, we have experienced great shifts in how we work, learn, and live day to day. The collective changes globally can be seen in the planetary alignments. And in December of 2020, Jupiter and Saturn met at 0 degrees of Aquarius, and we crossed a threshold. Illustrating the shifting paradigms that are happening in our everyday lives can be seen through all the events that have occurred since 2020, the altering structures of our day-to-day life within government, large institutions, and of how we do things, such as how we communicate, how we learn, how we conduct business, the commercial affairs, and how we travel. It also has played a part in how we relate to other people, how we connect and network, and the astrology of our time is manifesting through the alteration of cultural pillars in our societies. One of the pillars that we have is education. And you think back to 2020 when students were required to be on Zoom, and here we are recording our show on Zoom, so just tying it all together. And this is going to be an integral part of our life now. There are 3 planets that are inextricably linked to learning: Mercury, Jupiter, and Saturn. Because Mercury, the messenger, is such a fast-moving planet, its considered influence is quite personal, while Jupiter and Saturn placements will affect generations and how millions will learn through the transits that these giant gas giants, the Earth, last of the Earth planets, will go through the 12 signs in their cycle period. Their movements indicate how societal structures are our cultural pillars, such as education, will evolve. And currently, as we stand at the threshold of the March equinox of 2024, a brand new center of learning is opening its online doors. And I am so honored to be introducing to you Gelareh Khoie and Maryam Sayyad, the founding mothers of Kosmos Institute. So welcome to both of you. And what is Kosmos Institute? Oh, sorry, yes. we're gonna talk over each other a bit. I can edit this, by the way, so don't worry. So I'll just mark down the timer point and I can make a note. So we cut that out. That's all good. And what is Kosmos Institute? It is a new home for the sacred art of free inquiry. It is an academic locus for the transformation of individual and collective consciousness, which happens to represent the elements of air. And this is the age we are in with Jupiter and Saturn. Water will be the next elemental age that we enter. Through the engagement with emergent and ancient knowledge systems, the curriculum focuses on the interdisciplinary precincts of mysticism, esotericism, and archetypes. Kosmos Institute is a school for advanced independent study. It will also be a research center where scholars can explore and contribute to developing fields. It is also modeled as a think tank for approaching issues with the wisdom, depth, and wonder that seems to be lacking from more conventional think tanks, which are usually economically based. The mission of this new education institute is to take back this perennial quest we all have for truth and for examining the constructed nature of worldviews and nurturing an authentic pursuit of numinous unknowns. Delving into mythology, esotericism, and archetypes, Kosmos Institute will serve the ever-expanding world community of free thinkers, independent scholars, and truth seekers. Both founding mothers, Gelareh and Maryam, are creative artists and change agents, scholars and truth seekers. Both women were born in Tehran, Iran, and their families left Iran to preserve the right to think freely and to live without oppression. For the last 4 to 5 decades, Gelareh and Maryam pursued higher learning, achieving master's degrees, doctorate degrees, all the while being entrepreneurs, successfully starting and running their businesses, and always contributing to the cultures where they have lived. Truly, Gelareh and Maryam are Renaissance women of our current Aquarian age. So another welcome to both of you, and thank you so much for taking out a chunk of time from your pre-launch and prepping for the Kosmos Institute opening day. And I am so pleased that you are here.
Oh, Wendy, the pleasure is all ours. Thank you so much. This is also the great equinox day. So sorry, I interrupted.
It is. Well, actually, it's happening tonight, I believe, isn't it? For you, it starts to not overnight. I think we have the shift that actually when we're recording the show just a little bit early. And yes, the equinox occurs, I believe it's at in about 12 hours or so. Your nighttime.
Yeah.
Now, the high story, because history is really this is the elevated knowledge of being able to look back with hindsight, but there's something about the word history that makes it quite patriarchal, so I like the word high story. That exists between the two of you is so magical, and I'm just was in awe when we did the initial introduction. Just the pure tapestry of synchronicities that connected the both of you through time and space and a lifetime, really. And I was wondering if you'd be willing to share this with our audience.
Our pleasure. I mean, first of all, Wendy, thank you so much for this interview, for your beautiful words about Kosmos Institute. It was all very, very well described and well said. I don't think I have anything more to add about Kosmos in particular at this moment. I'll begin our story as Gelareh and I decided. Well, so the year is 1980, and we're now a couple of years into the Islamic Revolution of Iran that some of your listeners might be familiar with. There was a revolution somewhere in 1978, 1979 in Iran, and after a chain of events, sort of the Islamists took over, and it was henceforth called the Islamic Revolution. So Gelareh and I had both been living abroad, living in the United States as children. We didn't know each other when we were in the United States, but here we are in 1980, and we both traveled back to Iran, where our Farsi, our Persian wasn't that good. We had been educated outside of America, so we found ourselves at this little elementary school that was created for children of diplomats and children who had been abroad and coming to Iran. So we were kind of met there together in the third grade. Gelareh, do you want to add anything else at this point?
No, I'm listening.
Okay, you're listening to the story. Okay, reading the story. So here we are, we played hard. Like we became fast friends right away, we became best friends, and we played together all the time. And then we ended up going to different schools after third grade was over, and we pretty much lost touch at that point. So started to lose touch a little bit. Then came fifth grade. I'm 10 years old at that point, and my family gets visas to leave Iran. Like my father is still in the United States. My mother, my sister, and I have just been in Iran trying to get a legal visa to leave and join my father. So at 10 years old, I leave, okay? And Gelareh stays. Gelareh, I think you should tell us a little bit about your life.
Happening simultaneously in your life.
Yeah, it was a very interesting time because the war with Iraq had started, and the sort of the Islamic aspect of the new regime was becoming more and more pronounced. And um, I remember that I felt very rebellious towards the new system. I didn't really appreciate the compulsoriness of the religion. And I would listen to Madonna on my headphones underneath the scarf during like Arabic class and stuff like that. So I was kind of growing up. I was about 14 years old when I left. So Mariam was 10 when she left. So those are like kind of interesting early years of your um, evolution as a young girl into a teenager. But I never forgot Mariam, and and then pretty soon it was time for me to also leave the country. Pretty much everybody who could leave wanted to leave because the situation was growing more and more precarious, particularly for women with a rebellious streak. So, um, so finally we get to that point where my mother and I are in Germany, and we are waiting to go to the American embassy in the morning and apply for a visa. And my father was also in America at the time. And I just remember speaking to him on the phone and saying, hey, Dad, my friend Miriam is in California. Can you find him for me? Find her for me. And he was like, well, California is such a big place, honey. Do you know where in California? And I was like, I don't know where. I know she's in California. And the thing that you should know about Miriam's father is that he is a very famous, very famous Iranian playwright, author, director, and altogether intellectual and writer. So he was kind of wanted by the Islamic regime because he was critical of them. And so the whole family was under FBI protection at the time because there had been threats against his life. And so it wasn't like you could just look in the yellow pages. And this was way before the internet. And so anyway, that's what I did. I tasked my father with finding Mariam.
Okay. So this is now 1984,
86.
86. This is now 1986. I'm 13 years old, and my aunt, my mom's sister, my aunt, she had converted to Christianity. You know, she was among a lot of Iranians at the time who had converted to Christianity and was a born again Christian, and she was in that very heated part of her religion where she wanted to like convert everybody else as much as possible. And in our family, there was just kind of this rule of like, oh, you know, maybe stop with the converting and and let's just, you know, be family. So she wasn't really allowed to do that anymore with her nieces. But you know, this was her mission. So one day she says, hey, you know what, you and I just go hang out together today. We'll have some fun. I'll take you out to lunch. Maybe we'll go, I don't know where, ice skating or whatever we were gonna do. But let's go out, let's have some fun. And so my mom let me go. We had some lunch, and then after lunch, she said, we're gonna stop by at my friend's house over here. And we go to this condo somewhere in the San Fernando Valley of Los Angeles, and it's a Bible study. It's a group of Iranians who have gathered together to pray. It's Bible study, it's a prayer group. And so rockin', I'm like, uh-oh. Okay, here we are. And sat in the second row behind right behind a gentleman, a very tall gentleman, and it was his turn to kind of tell his story of why he was at this prayer group and what it is that he wanted us to pray for. And he starts talking about how the Lord has seen to it that his beloved daughter has gotten out of Iran and is now in Europe somewhere, needing to get a visa to come to the United States. And we as a group are going to pray for her to get this visa. And in the course of him telling his story, he says, my daughter, Gelareh. You know, Gelareh is not a very typical name. It's a Kurdish name, and I'd only known one Gelareh all my life. So I immediately prick up my ears and I Gelareh, and I kind of look from the side. I look at this man and I see his face, and I'm like, I know that face. That is Gelareh's dad. It's gotta be. So I'm like, tap him on the shoulder, and I'm like, are you Mr. Tabby Khoie? He says, yes, I am. And I'm like, I know your daughter. My name is Maryam.
Did you fall off the chair?
So this is what's amazing, is that at this point, Maryam doesn't know that I've already spoken to my father. And the thing is that my father was also a born again Christian. And the thing is that he had an aversion to other Iranians. He really was one of those people who exemplified this need to alter his identity because he had been so wounded by whatever had happened to him in his childhood. So he never went to that particular Bible study. He lived all the way in the other side of town, and he was just making the rounds of all the Bible studies that he knew of, just to get more prayers so that I would get the visa, because it was really hard to get visas back then for Iranians. So he just happened to be at that Bible study that day. Like, he would have never gone under any other circumstance. So the miracle is that the same day that Miriam's aunt decides to trick her into going to the Bible study is the same day that my dad happens to go there for extra prayers. And it's on the same weekend that I've just told my dad from Germany, can you please find my friend Miriam? So it's
Right.
kind of amazing. Like, the next day, my dad calls me and says, I found her. So it's amazing. And I remember I arrived in America on August 7th, 1986. I think it was August 7th. I think it was like a Wednesday. And then that Friday, we drove to the valley where Miriam lived, and we picked her up and brought her to Costa Mesa area where we were
Incidentally,
for a beach.
well, my family and Gelareh's father lived about an hour apart, away from each other. So every weekend he would come and pick me up. And this was the beginning. So we found each other again, and we've been best of friends ever since. We lived in different places, we've gone to different schools, we've led different lives, and yet I would say that easily we have spoken every week, if not every day. And eventually we went to graduate school together. You know, it wasn't until our 40s that we did so. So once we went through high school together and then went our separate ways for college, we came back together I mean, we had been friends, but we actually attended the same graduate school, Pacifica.
Is that also synchronistic? Was that a series of events, or had you both say, oh, well, I'm going to enroll here and at
No,
Pacifica?
Miriam and I, strangely, no matter what we ever did, we were always kind of living a parallel life of very interesting, like, similarities in our lives. Like, I went to Hawaii and I lived in Hawaii for 20 years. So Miriam would come, I would come visit her. So we lived in different towns for a large portion of our close friendship. But then in around the time when we both decided to go to graduate school, we had both undergone a kind of like a personal tragedy in our lives.
Yeah.
Different
Do
types
you
of.
mind me asking how old you were when at that what your ages were? Because I'm just saying, because you said that you went to graduate schools in your 40s.
Early
Is that
40s,
right?
yeah.
Early 40s?
I was 41
And I
when
was
Yeah.
the
43.
tragedy happened. Yeah, so
Yeah.
41, 42.
40, yeah. For a few.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. So the astrology of that time frame in your lives was the Uranian opposition, which happens between the age of 41 to 43. It's the midlife crisis point.
That's exactly how it was. And
Mm.
so what happened was that Maryam discovered Pacifica Graduate Institute in the Mythological Studies program that was so perfect for her. I was still really flailing around and didn't know what to do. Because I had a Bachelor of Fine Arts, my thinking was that the only type of higher education I was qualified to pursue was a Master of Fine Arts, because that's what artists do. But Maryam said, why don't you go to this really interesting program that they have there that's for people with an artistic background, but it combines like some academic rigor and Jungian psychology with, a creative practice. And I thought, oh, that's kind of perfect. And so I started going there, about 6 months or a year after she started. And the other thing about Pacifica that I appreciate, that I think Cosmos follows through on in terms of being part of some kind of lineage, is that it champions uh, and cultivates and really privileges uh, types of knowledge that don't find a lot of um, space in the traditional academies. I really appreciate that angle that the school brings.
You've incorporated that with Cosmos by really pioneering a whole new paradigm in the educational space. Once, just from even making it so affordable as well, which that to get the messaging out to our audience, the courses all cost the same. You correct me if you want to please elaborate further and explain how that works.
Ma'am, do you want to explain?
Well, sure. It's true, Wendy. All the courses cost $333. Our courses are
US.
nine,
Mhm.
excuse me,
Mhm.
US, yeah.
US dollars. Mhm.
They're 9 weeks long. So,
Mhm.
it is possible to find courses online everywhere. There are a lot of short form courses, 1 day, 4 week, that kind of thing. But we deliberately chose a longer format for the courses so that it's a really in-depth
Mm.
study of whatever it is. I mean, really in-depth, nine weeks, but it is the equivalent of a university course. And the reason for that is our teachers are very, very learned. They're great scholars, they're responsible scholars, and they're the best. And we want to make that available. We want to bring them out of sort of the universities and also from places of independent scholarship, because many of the authors that are teaching at Cosmos and that we admire so much, they actually don't have university positions and they don't teach. They spend their time in research and in scholarship. And so we like to give them this forum to come and share so that we can all learn from them. And then the classes are $333, are very affordable for students. And in addition to that, they're very fair to the teacher because the teacher always gets 50% of the fees. So this is a way to really give back to the scholars of the world that we've been riding on their shoulders and on their coattails all this time. And we want to give this opportunity to them too, to the students and to the teachers, to have a place where they get a really good deal, quite frankly.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a matter of fact,
Actually,
sorry, go ahead, Gelareh.
sorry to interrupt. If I could just
Yes.
add something to what Miriam said. you know, it struck us that there are two elements in the educational system that are the most important, and those are the teacher and the student. And currently, at least in America, the situation has gotten so bad where the teachers work so much. They work so many long hours. They put in so much effort and time into preparing their lectures and their materials and their syllabi and the assessments and teaching and tests and grading papers and, you know, overseeing research students, so much work. They don't get paid very much. I mean, you know,
What they put in. So if you counted how many hours.
and then the students are all going into debt, like
Right.
almost universally. In order to go to school now, you have to go into debt. And so we just saw that as like really unfair and thought we have an opportunity here, besides the types of subject matters that we're studying, which are considered the outsider subjects that have been marginalized all these years. We also want to bring this fairness to the table that I think is so fundamental, because it just changes the entire energy of the learning environment for everybody. And we think that the positive energy of that could really be transformative.
And it will be, because if you think about the fact that standardized education around the world has just contributed to a lessening of soul connection for humanity, the dumbing down just on even basics, where children can't even read or do math until they're in double digits. So I think that you are both pioneering a new paradigm in the way education is provided. And I truly believe that we're going to look back in 10 years and know that as founding mothers, that you all will have just blazed a whole new trail out there globally for people to study life skills, the true essence of humanity, which has seemingly gone off the syllabi of a lot of institutions, and the old, like you said, the old guard getting upset by new thought or new approaches.
Yeah, it's a really good point you're making about you know, what has happened to education. When I think about why I pursued education, not just in graduate school, but even going back to college, like the first moment that you actually you seek education by choice, as opposed to it just being part of the life that's handed to you. And it was always a search for truth, you know? It was always about knowledge. It was always about truth. And that gets really lost in this in the weeds, you know. It's all about this kind of like this economic status and having to do something. But there are so many people who are still in touch with the fact that they're truth seekers. They want to pursue truth. And that's sort of the one of the things that we want to bring back onto the table is like just remember, like, remember why you do this. Remember why you read in the first place and why we're going to school in the first place, is that we're seeking truth, right? And we continuously go back to this point, right? At Kosmos.
Staying curious.
Yeah.
Right? Why did your story weave together so beautifully 40 or 35 years ago? You know, that synchronicity and the magic and the, you know, the elements of what makes life special needs to be woven into knowledge, because then it imprints, I think, onto the psyche and to a person, and you carry that forever, and that leads to wisdom. right? And so if we create a wiser society, God willing, you know, down the road, that we're going to all make better choices. You
Yes.
look at some of the young people today that their face is in their phone and they can't hold a conversation, or they're just lacking that curiosity, and yet they're all depressed or ADD or whatever they're diagnosing them with. But the fact is I think that as that sense of wholeness, and so esoteric knowledge has left the realm of everyday living, and you're bringing it back. And I think that this is going to help evolve our society in such a better way.
Thank you, Wendy. We're so appreciative of your support. I'm so glad you appreciate
Well,
it.
I'm looking forward to being a student. So, so if you guys wouldn't mind, just also telling our audience about how the school is structured with the foundation series and the, yeah.
Yeah, keep in mind that you know, we shook hands on doing the school together. It was August 7th, 2023. We were having breakfast, brunch, and so we decided to do it, and then we just kind of dreamed it into being. We didn't really have any predetermined notions. It just kind of happened. It's so interesting. We everything started to happen in threes. We came up with an idea for 3 of this and 3, and little by little, everything just added up to 3. That's why the courses are $333. And our handle on the social media for a few of them is Kosmos Institute 333, because
Right. Okay.
yeah, it's just so interesting the way it just happened organically like that. So we kind of came up with this idea for a series where there would be sort of like a foundational basis, like certain ideas and thinkers and historical figures or philosophies that are so foundational to the study of esoteric mysticism and religious studies and philosophy in general, that everybody should have some familiarity with them if they're going to enter into this universe of knowledge. So that was one of the series, right? And then we thought, so that was the foundation, and then we thought of this sort of like mid-level, where if you had a little bit more familiarity with the subject matter, then that would be a little bit more appropriate for you. And for this first year, we decided to focus on archetypal astrology. So we had like a number of courses that build upon each other. So you could take just one of the courses, or you can take all of them in a series. And this way you have options in terms of how deep you want to go.
So
And
there
then
are three courses in the foundation series, or is it, oh, because 9-week terms. So do you do
yeah, so
3 terms?
we do 4 quarters, and then
4
we
quarters?
have one of each in each of the quarters. So
Okay.
the spring quarter will have one foundation, one medium, and what's it, the special.
Astrological archetype, yeah.
Yeah. So each of the series has one class each quarter.
Gotcha.
And then, which again adds up to 3. It's interesting. And then the mastery series for this year, it was Maryam's kind of like brainchild. And why don't you tell us about that one, Maryam?
Okay, for the mastery series, you don't have to be a master to take this series. Honestly, it's more specific in what it's studying, and it's called Breaking Through to the Other Side. The sub is emerging narratives of transcendent gnosis. So let's just say breaking through to the other side. What are these sort of modern forms of accessing the beyond? Okay. And what we have in there is, one of them is the near-death experience. There is this, whole corpus of narratives kind of emerging of people having near-death experiences and what they're describing about what they're perceiving beyond the veil. Then of course we have this like boom in psychedelic medicine, correct? So we have a class in near-death experiences, a class in psychedelics, and then a third form of what we're calling sort of modern form of transcendent gnosis is the UFO close encounter experience. And then the whole series kind of closes with Dr. Jeffrey Kripal of Rice University. He's written this incredible book called How to Think Impossibly, where, I mean, he's been thinking about this and lecturing about these things for years of like, how do we actually wrap our head around these mysteries, these impossible events that keep breaking through into people's realities. Like, how do we wrap our heads around it? So can't wait to have Dr. Kripal sort of lead us through a class with his book alongside.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's those are the three different series, the foundational series, the specialty series, and the mastery series. And every year we'll add more to that foundational. Every year we'll launch a new specialty series, and every year we'll have a new mastery series. And who knows, like this is just as together or another, this just started. So at the moment, it seems very structured, and it's like, well, these are our courses and these are the series, and we want you to take as many as you can. But as we go, more ways and means will be added. Maybe there will be, you know, just a monthly course or a day course or various talks here and there. One of the things that we'll be launching soon is a seminar series where we'll choose a topic, and like every month there will be like just a short form lecture given on that topic. So we'll just kind of, we're fluid. We're fluid as there's so
Adaptable.
much to do. We're adaptable. There's so much in these three subjects of mythology, archetypal studies, esotericism. There's so much philosophy in there, so much.
Or even
So
classical Greek, I think, was that a
So,
course?
yeah, so the classical Greek was we believe that some of these ancient languages like Greek and Latin, German isn't ancient but still German. I think it's useful. We both think it's useful for scholars to have access to a certain amount of language knowledge so that we can make our own determination about the meanings of words, because there's a certain degree of colonialism and institutionalized interpretation that has gone into the translation of texts. And so, obviously you have to be like an uber nerd to geek out on languages. But
Classicals, right, yeah.
right. So, so we're thinking one of the wonderful, really wonderful things about Kosmos Institute is that we're receiving just the most amazing feedback from the scholars and professors to whom we're turning. And some of them have sort of come forward with ideas for curricula for the future. So there's a sort of expansive universe of knowledge that wants to sort of come into being in a collaborative way. And that's one of the things we really prize, is that we want our scholars and professors to have the freedom to experiment with their most precious ideas, the things that they love the most, that's very up for them. We don't want to hamper them with institutionalized kind of limitations about what can and can't be. So we're already starting to evolve and work with a bunch of scholars on that. And so I think we're going to integrate the Greek language courses with a broader curriculum focused on the history of esoteric philosophies. It's just like kind of what's starting to maybe kind of come into being. So that could be very exciting. And yeah, so as Maryam is saying, as she was talking, I suddenly had a vision of like, as you know, one of the it at the moment, Cosmos Institute is a kind of like a supplemental educational system where somebody might already be in school but wants to do a little bit more research into a certain topic, and we just happen to be teaching a 9-week course with an epic scholar in that. And then, so you could potentially take courses from foundational, from specialized, from mastery. That way you're taking like one course every quarter, so that by the end of it, you've put together for yourself a little tapestry of knowledge that you picked according to your own desires about what is more fascinating for you, so that by the end of 1 year or 2 years of study, you've gained a pretty decent graduate level education that only costs you $1,200 a year. So we're pretty excited about the possibilities that are there, and we're just going to keep, adding to the offerings.
The format of the teaching, so when you enroll in a course, it's obviously at a set and a specific time, because, or depending on where the professor is, because don't you have a global audience of, or a global trove of professors that are teaching?
Yes, we
So is
do.
it based on their time?
Yes, actually, one of our main professors that's teaching the alchemy class, he lives in Auckland.
Right. Aaron Cheek, Dr. Cheek, yes.
Yeah. So that's why we have him teaching at 2 p.m. here, California, which I believe is then 10 a.m. your time the next
That's
day.
right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we do
At
definitely
the,
consider those things.
at the moment, our classes are on Saturdays. Just so,
Oh, very good. So
right,
Sundays here in New Zealand, yeah.
that's
So
right.
that would be Saturday Pacific time.
Yes, and so for you it would be Sunday morning, and
Mm,
you could easily take the class.
yeah, it's perfect. One of the points that you mentioned, Maryam, about being flexible and having this fluidity of allowing Cosmos Institute to grow, fits very much with the current astrological energy of our learning planets, which is Jupiter and Saturn. And both of you I watched a fascinating interview with an astrologer about studying students in the classroom based on their generation and what sign Jupiter was in, because the planet Jupiter takes 12 months to go through a sign. But in a given year, it could retrograde back to another sign or move into another sign ahead of it and then return. And she said there's an absolute distinction between, let's say, children with Jupiter and Gemini versus Jupiter and Cancer and how they learn. And so we're right now about Jupiter and Taurus, but Jupiter is going to be moving into Gemini come May. And the fact that we are going to experience a collective wave of curiosity when every 12 years Jupiter's in Gemini. And for a lot of people, they find themselves wanting to read more, take on more information. So your timing is actually quite impeccable as far as the cycles go. And then, of course, you have Saturn in Pisces, which Pisces is the sign of the collective. It's of the numinous unknown and tapping into dreams and artistic expression. And Saturn gives some structure to that. So if, depending on perspective, but, I'm fitting the piece here to say that, you're giving some structure to those numinous unknowns.
That's wonderful. Yes, and the thing is, without Saturn, there's the danger of never getting anything done, and just going down rabbit holes of esoteric mysticism, and never really garnering anything of value, potentially getting lost in systems of thought that are actually a little bit dodgy. So
A
yeah,
nebulous or
yeah, so we definitely need Saturn to help us give some structure.
And what's really interesting is that, through the course of the time, so Saturn sojourn through a sign is about 2.5 years, and it'll finish in February of 2026, which will coincide with the new term in 2026 of Saturn going into Aries. And it's that 2026 is another huge paradigm shift collectively. And so I think, once again, it just magical timing, the way it is all woven together. And the both of you have Saturn in Gemini. So when you have Jupiter over the next, from May of 2024 going, you'll have it entering that sign and then conjuncting. So there's going to be periods of being able to expand, but with a discipline or control.
Oh, fascinating. This is you've now mentioned the paradigm shift a couple of times, about shifting paradigms earlier, and now
Yes.
shift again. Like this is really this has really been up for us regarding everything that we're doing. Obviously, the fact that we're even two Iranian women who have sort of managed to get ourselves out from under this Islamic veil and over here and sort of creating our own lives, and also I think like dealing with some of these paradigm shifts. That whole series of breaking through to the other side, like each of those subjects is like it's an absolute sign of an evolving God image, of like this entirely new approach to religion and religiosity and spirituality, right? So some of the things you're talking about, it's like sort of these harbingers of the age of Aquarius, are they not?
Exactly. Yes.
And
That's
this
right. And the
this
model of the
shift.
school, the leveling the playing field, is Aquarian. We had, last time Pluto was in Aquarius, we had revolutions happening in the late 1700s. The monarchy and oppression and siloed existence was breaking down. And where the bottom of the pyramid, the people, the masses, the grassroots, found their voice. And so by leveling the playing ground and the educational field for making it profitable and for professors and affordable for students, that once again is appealing to that Aquarian principle of fairness and equal rights, that all the principles that are in the French and American constitutions.
A decentralization.
Decentralization.
Every time there's this like this more of decentralization, like it takes a little bit of power away from that institutionalized way of being.
That's right.
And so we have this world in which there's this intense centralizing of power going on, and at the same time, like this clear decentralizing that's happening at the same time. It's like a dance. And I think Kosmos is part of that sort of decentralization of learning.
That's great. That's perfect, Maryam. And the fact that that's where education is going to go, and you're helping lead the way there. So because it's not going to just be higher learning, but eventually it's going to have to be for the youth as well. Because they're going to need the toolkit to function at a higher spiritual level.
Absolutely. In fact, I think such an important point you make, Wendy, about early education. I think if we were taught about the psyche, about the reality of the psyche, about how the psyche is a portal that we're all connected to, that takes us to dimensions beyond just the physical experience of embodied life, then perhaps we would have more familiarity with alternative realities that we normally try to suppress because they challenge our materialistic notions. So it's that sort of animosity, I think, cultural animosity towards alternative but very real existential facts that I think causes a lot of trouble for our species. And so whatever all of us can do to help bring, and I think the study of astrology is clearly one of those ways in which self-knowledge can be garnered and
Used constructively.
mm,
And that's a point about using fairy tales or the myths, the story, you know, I remember Dr. Jean Houston at Mystery School was, you know, we're creating new myths now for our time but yet the ancient myths are so epochal to you know, they're essential to our existence still for what they represent. And I think if younger children had access to to the fairy tales, understood fairy tales on a symbolic level,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yes.
that would be a big shift. Yeah.
100%. Another thing that about the age of Aquarius, you know, it's like it is about the sort of this falling away of the age of Pisces, correct? So we've had a couple of thousand years of these big religions that have kind of owned sort of the mythological field, and all of this folklore and all of this mythology and all of these, you know, these beautiful models of truth and reality and psyche, and have been sort of they've been swept under the rug. And you can see it, like you can see all of this emergence of the myths now and the folklore now, you know, this great Celtic folklore revival going on in Ireland. It's so beautiful. It contains so much rich and helpful knowledge about the actual, just the land of Ireland and how to interface with the natural world. And these things are emerging. It's like spring is sprung everywhere. That's wonderful.
And we have that, yeah. So with you know the Maori culture and having that connection to the land. There's a new film out. Was it called My Mountain? I just saw the previews for it recently, and it's about this young boy who identifies with this particular volcanic mountain, and he has cancer and he's on a mission to climb it. And making that connection with the land and this symbolic, I mean, this is very brief from the trailer, but what it represents to him. And so it's leaking through, it's coming through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what Jung always says, is that the psyche is always presenting us with the solutions to our unconsciousness. All dreams, for example, will always have the medicine that you need also in the images of the dream. And the challenge is that we don't believe these things. We've learned to dishonor and disrespect them as, you know, of not us, of course, we're preaching to the choir here probably, but the general
mainstream.
Yeah, so hopefully that's what's going to happen, is that these paradigm shifts are going to result in people willingly changing their worldviews, and then the worldview
and self-views yeah.
Yeah, so once the mythic structure upon which a society is formed shifts, then the behaviors of the society also shift.
Wise words, Gelareh. Thank you. Oh, it has been an absolute delight to have this visit with you and share the beauty of Kosmos, the birth of Kosmos Institute. And I just, yeah, I'm so excited. I'm really looking forward to enrolling. So, you know, people, if you want to visit kosmosinstitute.org, and Cosmos is spelled Kosmos. And what I'll do is I'll have a link all pertinent links with the video so that our listeners can have a look and see, and hopefully find a course that they'd be curious about and want to enroll. Now, are you doing anything special for enrollment? Early bird, I think it was, you mentioned.
Yes,
You want-
we are offering an early bird enrollment for our summer astrology course with Dr. Saffron Rossi. The course is called Myth and the Zodiac, and it's a fascinating course. She's an incredible teacher, and the code for it is Summer Astro 2024. But we'll ask Wendy to put it in the bio beneath the video so you can
We'll
sign.
do that. Yep,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, there's a 20% off early bird special for
And
enrollment.
when is that enrollment starting? So that's now, they can enroll now.
It starts actually on the 23rd. So today's the 19th right now. So
Yeah,
just after, as soon as the spring courses launch, the summer courses will open for enrollment.
great. So sometime in March, yeah. And then that's wonderful. And then they start in June, is it?
Yes, we've structured our courses to start almost exactly on or around the equinoxes and the solstices.
I love that. How magical is that?
Yes.
Oh, excellent. Oh, ladies, I wish you truly the biggest success with everything that you're doing
Thank you
and
so much.
paving this new way.
Thank you.
And it's been once again, just an absolute delight to have both of you here and talking about what you're doing, how you came together. And we're going to have to actually edit this point because I have to find my piece of paper with my mouse. It has my closing on it.
Oh, I see it
So
here.
it's just, yeah,
There's
just
your
dealing.
gratitude.
And then I can let you guys get on with the rest of your day.
We have to
Okay.
go do Persian New Year celebrations.
Mhm.
Yes.
This was
Oh,
so
yes,
fun,
and
though.
so-
This was great for Persian New Year. Mhm.
And that would be great. So what I'm going to do is I'll just read this little bit of checking out here, and then if you guys want to do your parting thoughts with the Happy New Year and Farsi or whatever,
Okay.
that would be kind of nice.
I'll let Maryam sign us off.
Okay.
No, what am I gonna say?
I'll be reading this little bit and then you can think about it. In light of the new Aquarian age and the new age of air, the element where Saturn and Jupiter will conjoin for every 20 years for the next couple hundred years. We are so fortunate to have the work that these two gorgeous souls are doing and enlightening our world with this educational institute called Kosmos Institute. Tell your friends about it. Tell your family about it. Spread the word, because this is what our society needs. And some words from an inspired thinker, Earl Nightingale. I leave this with you. Everything that's really worthwhile in life comes to us free. Our minds, our souls, our bodies, our hopes, our dreams, our ambitions, and our intelligence. Nourish what is worthwhile, everyone. Gelareh Maryam, if you'd like to leave our listeners, our audience with any special words, that would be so appreciated.
Well, Wendy, thank you so much. This was just so much fun. Such an honor to be here with you and your listeners. All of you beautiful truth seekers out there. Please write to us. If you find us at cosmosinstitute.org, send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. Love to hear your thoughts. Today is the spring equinox. We are Iranian, and this is the Iranian New Year. So I want to say عید شما مبارک، سال شما مبارک, سال نو مبارک. That means Happy New Year in Persian. Happy spring equinox to everyone. And I like to always quote William Blake when he says, "Rise and drink your bliss, for all that lives is holy." Indeed, life is holy.
Thank you both. My sincere gratitude, and to the founding mothers of Kosmos Institute, to all of you who tuned in, whether by intention or luck, may your star shine brightly. Until next time.